Hi, welcome to Sideline Leg Day. Today I have chosen a little series where your knees are going to be bent the entire time. This is a little trick that we can do in order to help you stay out of the front of your hips and the front of your legs as you're doing this series. We're really trying to get the glutes, or that booty, that side booty, working for this entire time. And I find that sometimes when the legs are long, you might end up using the wrong muscles. So if you're having that problem, this is a great workout for you. And let's get started. So I'm gonna have you go ahead and lie on your side. I want you to set up with your shoulders, ribs, and hips along the back side of the mat. And we're going to have the knees bent to a 90-degree angle. And I want you to start with your heels lined up directly under your booty. I want you to think of reaching long out the top, bottom of your hip. So I don't want you to be lazy in your hips here. I don't want you to be lazy along this bottom side along the mat. Really try to reach that top hip out and down and have a little bit of lift in this bottom oblique, or this bottom side here. I like to do my series with my head up on my hand here. If you prefer, for neck alignment, you can go ahead and lower down on your side. You can put a towel underneath your head here to make it a little bit more even. Hi, kitty cats. The beauties of doing Pilates in your home. All right, let's get started. So once you're all lined up here in the hips, all lifted in the side, you're going to just try to lift the top leg up and down, trying to keep the foot and the knee on the same level at this point in time. So as we're doing these, I want you to think about these hip muscles pulling that upper leg bone up towards the ceiling in the socket. What we don't want, I just tried to trick it there. You don't want your foot to lead, and you don't want your knee to lead yet. You're really trying to keep them even. I'm doing the best I can. That's all I can expect from you as well. 2 more, and then we're going to stay at the top. And the top meaning I want your leg just a little bit higher than hip height, and you're still reaching long through that top hip, keeping lifted underneath the bottom side. And you're just going to internally rotate that leg in the socket and externally rotate the leg in the socket. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and move my front hand. You can either keep your front hand there or you can pull it up. I'm going to put it on my hip just so I can make sure that my whole pelvis isn't moving and I am just rotating that upper leg bone in the socket. And so if you're doing a little cheating, you might notice that you're rocking forward or back in that pelvis. And so I'm just putting my hand here to keep an eye on what's happening. Two more here. And now I want you to stay in that external rotation position where your knees up towards the ceiling. And from here, you're squeezing that booty to bring the leg back in the socket and then return to center. And again, as I do this, I'm trying not to rock back. It's a little harder to maintain, so you have to keep those abs tight. If you need that hand in front of you again here, you can. Now, I don't expect everybody to be able to get their knees straight up to the ceiling. I just want you to do the range that you can do. And so I would rather your knee be here and you're using that glute muscle to bring the leg back than have you opening up that pelvis to get the knee appearing to be higher to the ceiling, but it really isn't going any further. Great. Bring that leg down. Now we're going to keep the knees bent, but we're going to bring the angle of the hip up. So you're going to have the 90-degree angle at the hip and the 90-degree angle at the knee. Again, reaching that top hip long, abs tight, and try to make sure those knees are even as you lift that top leg up. So the first 2 exercises here are going to be the same as what you just did. We're just changing the angle at the hip, which is going to get a little bit different of a glute muscle. And as you're lifting, you're trying to get a little bit higher than hip height, but trying to maintain the same plane for the foot and the knee and not rock back in the pelvis. So everything's staying square. Nothing's opening up to the ceiling. And staying up. It's that internal, external rotation again. So you're going to go knee to knee and toe to toe. But rather than thinking of moving from the foot or the knee, I want you to think of rotating from this thigh bone. You might have heard of these referred to as a clamshell modification. I'm really trying to get those hip rotators burning. I'm really feeling that already. We got one more here, and then we're gonna do circles. Yeah. Bring that leg back into that parallel position, and you're just gonna draw circles with your knee. And what I want you to imagine is that you have a fist or a tennis ball, something of that size, in front of you, and you're just drawing a little circle around it. And again, the idea is that you're keeping your hips stable and you're moving that upper thigh bone in the socket to make those circles. So I'm not thinking of leading from my knee. I'm thinking of leading from my hip. Okay, reverse those. So now you're gonna go down and back, up and around, back to center. As we get into this final stretch here, we are trying to maintain the pelvic stability, even though we're getting the shakes in our hips. 2 more. Oh, my leg's barely moving anymore. Last one. Relax. Go ahead and hit that out. Oh. Great job. I know I felt that burn. Guess what? We get to do it all over again on the other side. So bring yourself up through center and switch sides. Same setup here. So we're gonna do shoulders, ribs, and hips along the back of the mat. You're gonna have the knees bent at a 90-degree angle. I want your heels underneath your booty. Reach that top hip long. Try to lift up under that bottom oblique. Abs are tight. And whatever position you were in on the other side with the head, whether you were lying down on a towel, lying down on your arm, or up, take that same position again here. And keeping those abs tight, shins are trying to stay parallel, and you just lift that leg and lower back down. It seems so easy during this first exercise and so heavy for the last one. And that's what happens when we're working all these tiny little muscles. Again, we're reaching long through this hip. And then we're trying to keep the knee and the foot on the same plane the whole time. 2 more here, and then we get to do those turn in, turn out. Stay up and rotate knee to knee and rotate toe to toe. And 2. And so again here, I'm really trying to rotate that upper leg bone in the socket. I'm not letting my pelvis rock back or forward. I'm just trying to keep the abs tight to maintain that pelvic position. Two more here. And then we are going to stay in that external rotation position, knee reaching up to the ceiling, whatever your range is. I don't expect you to be as high with that knee as I am. If you are, great, but you can also be a little lower. It's about where you're moving from. So again, you're trying to move from this back glute to bring the leg back in the socket. You're not opening that pelvis up. A good way to tell whether you're doing this properly or not is to take that top hand off. If you're really grabbing with the mat and moving your ribs around, you're probably cheating a little bit. So just test your balance if you can. We got 2 more here. And last pull back there. Good. Knees together. And we're going to bring the knees up so you're at that 90-degree angle at the hips, 90-degree angle at the knee. And again, as always, top hip reaches down. Make sure your knees are even. Bottom ribs are lifted, abs are tight. Back to that first exercise, just in the different angle. And so the shins are staying parallel as you lift and lower. Trying to move the knee and the foot the same amount at the same time. And you're really thinking of these outer glute muscles engaging to lift the leg up and down. You shouldn't feel anything happening in the hip flexor or anything happening in the quad here. So we're trying to get those teeny tiny hip muscles to work, not those bigger everyday muscles. We're gonna do 3 more here. As it's starting to get tired, we're gonna stay up, stay there, and rotate knee to knee and toe to toe. So again, you might have heard this referred to as a modified clamshell or just a clamshell. And that's fine. We're just rotating the upper leg bone in the socket. And so even though the reference point may be the knees or the toes, you're really trying to think of that spiraling happening in the upper leg. And again, if you have the hand down in front of you, that is great. Just make sure that you're not collapsing with the knee going in. All right, back to shins parallel. Here are your little circles. And so we're coming up, around down into the back and back to center. That one was a little big. So again, we're trying to do around a fist or around a tennis ball size. We're trying to keep it concentrated in these little muscles and not let the bigger muscles take over. We're in the home stretch. We can do this. It never gets easier. It only gets more effective. The better you get at this using the small muscles, the better the burn feels. And let's reverse those circles. Last thing. Got the shakes. Hopefully you do too. Just try not to give up. Just do whatever range you can properly, even if those tiny muscles are shaking. Three more. We can do this. And last one. Nice job. Okay. Hit it out, rub it out. Let's come sitting up for a little stretch. So I like to do this stretch where I have my bottom leg bent with the knee in front of me. I cross that top leg over as much as I can, trying to stack the knees. And I'm really trying to get the hip of the top leg down all the way onto the mat, and that knee is pushing out. And then from there, think about hinging forward from the hips. So you're reaching long through that spine. Try not to collapse over. Abs are nice and tight, long spine here. Try to hold it and breathe, deep breaths. Enjoy the stretch. And then switch legs. So again, bottom knee, try to line that up in front of you. Cross the top leg over, get the hip of the top leg all the way down on the mat. Lengthen through the spine, lengthen through the sternum to hinge forward. Some deep breaths there, making sure you're not collapsing through the chest. Stay nice and long. And there you have it. So that was our side lying leg series with bent knees. And hopefully you were able to really be able to focus in on the glutes and outer hips and rotators doing the work, and you weren't getting too much tension in the front of the legs or the front of the hips. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I would love to help you out. And maybe this would be a good one to pair with an upper body or an ab series if you have any extra time. See you next time.